Anti-Trump protests take place in major U.S. cities. President-elect Donald Trump meets with President Barack Obama at the White House. And a roundup of Africa's hottest music videos. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Well, Americans and people the world over are still digesting the U.S. presidential election results. The election of Donald Trump as the 45th president of the United States has sparked protests in many U.S. cities, that's including in Texas, the state that traditionally supports Republican candidates. Zlatica Hope reports.
Hours after Trump met with President Barack Obama at the White House Thursday, angry protesters gathered outside the stately mansion to denounce his campaign promise to deport Mexican immigrants and his statements considered offensive to women. Earlier in the day, protests were also held in his hometown, New York.
He is a horrible, horrible person. He said nothing but rude, obnoxious things to this country. He ran on hate. He ran on divisiveness. He excluded almost everyone that believes in change and the progressive world. He's a liar.
So what do the protesters hope to achieve? One student at the University of California in Los Angeles had this to say.
I just want to come out here and remind him that America is not just people who voted for him, it's people who strongly disagree with him, and hopefully this way we can come to a consensus.
The protests are a sign of a healthy and solid democracy and will not interfere with the peaceful transition of power, political analyst Klaus Lares told VOA via Skype.
Why not? Why shouldn't they shout out their frustration? But they have to remain peaceful, of course. They should be part of the normal process of what is happening in a democracy, but I don't think that any impending president will be much influenced by these protests.
Lares said it is a little late to protest now.
These demonstrations should, of course, have come before the election to remind people what is at stake. Now I think we will have to accept the result and give, as President Obama said today, and give Trump a chance to implement his policies, and then we'll see whether or not we will have good reason to protest.
The president-elect struck a conciliatory note in his first address after the election victory, in which he said the country needs to bind its wounds. After the meetings with President Obama and House Speaker Paul Ryan on Thursday, Trump's rhetoric contained none of the offensive words he used in his campaign speeches. Zlatica Hope, VOA News, Washington.
Well, just 2 days after his stunning election victory, President-elect Donald Trump and his wife Melania Trump came to the White House Thursday, invited by President Barack Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. Despite a long history of animosity between Obama and Trump, both were gracious in their remarks, pledging to work together for a smooth transition of power. White House correspondent Cindy Sain has more.
Our president-elect is...
President Obama and President-elect Trump spoke much longer than scheduled at their first in-person meeting. Obama said their conversation was excellent.
It was wide-ranging. We talked about some of the organizational issues in setting up a White House. We talked about foreign policy. We talked about domestic policy. And as I said last night, my number one priority in the coming 2 months is to try to facilitate a transition that ensures our president-elect is successful.
After criticizing President Obama in the past and questioning if he was born in the United States, Trump struck a different tone inside the White House.
I very much look forward to dealing with the president in the future, including counsel. He explained some of the difficulties, some of the high-flying assets, and some of the really great things that have been achieved. So, Mr. President, it was a great honor being with you, and I look forward to being with you many, many more times in the future. Thank you, sir.
Some analysts wondered if Trump will soften his rhetoric now that he has won the election.
We have sort of the sense of Trump that we've seen on the campaign trail, and then we have a slightly more muted version of Trump that we've seen come out from time to time. And the question of whether that latter form, that sort of pivot that we often anticipated but never quite saw during the presidential campaign, will that come out when he gets to the White House? We just don't know.
Obama campaigned hard for former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and had some harsh words for Trump, saying he was temperamentally unfit to be commander-in-chief. But Press Secretary Josh Earnest said Thursday their meeting was less awkward than some may have feared. First Lady Michelle Obama met privately with Melania Trump. Earnest said they discussed the challenges of raising children in the White House. Cindy Sain, VOA News, the White House.
Well, joining us now to discuss further what a Donald Trump victory could mean to America and the world is Kweku Nwauma, adjunct professor at American University and senior fellow at Center for Conflict Resolution, Salisbury, Maryland. Professor Nwauma, welcome to Africa 54.
Thanks for having me. It's been a while, Vincent.
Yes. First, it's been a few days now, and still we're seeing this excitement on the streets across America. First, have you seen anything like this after an election in the past?
No, but I was in this town when George Bush was sworn in, and a lot of people were not happy because, just like Donald Trump, he didn't win the popular vote. And so there were a lot of people that didn't vote for him, and they were upset that he was becoming president. And we didn't see this kind of demonstration, this kind of anger. But George Bush was not the man that Donald Trump is. Donald Trump, is very repugnant to a lot of people. His rhetoric is beneath the presidency, and people are feeling it.
Yes, but for those of our viewers in Africa, one of the things they're looking at is like, oh, this looks like an African street, but it's not the same. I mean, these people are not saying he will not be our president, but they're saying we want to remind him that although we didn't vote for him, he has to think about us, and perhaps he has to change the way he will do some of these things.
Yes, and I think Africans can learn from this experience. Just because the candidate that you voted for didn't win the election doesn't mean that the election itself is illegitimate. There are rules, and he won by those rules. And so you see that Barack Obama, for example, received him nicely. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote and yet conceded. So Africans can learn from how we move forward after elections, even if the outcome is not what we expected.
Yes. And how about that meeting with President, President-elect, the president, after months of, in fact, they've never met face to face,
and they don't like each other.
They don't like each other, but
it's the beginning of the transition.
Yeah,
when the sitting president says, "Here, I'm handing the torch over to you," that's conferring legitimacy on the new guy that has been elected.
Yeah. And I think a big lesson for Africa and also for African presidents, even some of those who are sending congratulatory messages, but a lesson to learn here that you should put the country first. And reconciliation is part of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you can also protest.
Yeah.
Protest is part of your civic duty. You can protest, and government should not be quick to shut down protests when people are in the streets expressing their opinions.
Yeah.
As long as they're not breaking the law.
Don't suppress free expression, but also don't burn up the country.
Don't burn up the country. The country will be fine.
Yeah.
And with or without Trump, life will go on.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we you know what, we'll continue our conversation with Professor Nwauma in just a moment. But 2 days after his victory, Donald Trump made his first visit to the Capitol as president-elect on Thursday. Now, viewers, Michael Bowman reports Trump has an ambitious legislative to-do list for the early months of his administration.
Thank you very much, President Obama.
After meeting with President Obama, Donald Trump strategized with a Republican ally, House Speaker Paul Ryan.
We are now talking about how we're going to hit the ground running.
And laid out his legislative goals.
We're going to lower taxes, as you know. We're going to fix health care and make it more affordable and better.
On the other side of the Capitol, Trump conferred with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, the other man he will rely on to shepherd his agenda through Congress. Before the election, McConnell often refused to discuss Trump or even mention his name.
I don't particularly want to sit here today and critique the presidential campaigns.
By contrast, Democrats had been exuberant right up to the final hours of election night, promising progress on progressive goals.
Tackle climate change and safeguard our planet. Pass comprehensive immigration reform. and get a functioning Supreme Court, a Supreme Court that will protect women's rights, voting rights.
But that vision hinged on a key assumption.
We can do this and more with Hillary Clinton as the next President of the United States.
Now Republicans are laying plans for the coming year.
We would like to see the country go in a different direction.
With Republicans controlling both houses of Congress and the White House, McConnell expects action on taxes, repealing Obamacare, and filling a Supreme Court vacancy.
The American people have spoken, and President Trump will send us a nominee, I assume, early next year.
This Congress controlled by Republicans, they're going to act. They have an agenda of things that they want to do. They have the votes to push them through. So people are going to see a lot of change.
Much of that change will target President Barack Obama's legacy. Senate Democrats will be able to use procedural tactics to block some, but not all, Republican agenda items. And on some matters, like Trump's pledge to build a massive wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, divisions among Republicans could be exposed. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
Well, let's return to our discussion with Professor Kweko Noma. Professor Noma, could you have envisioned, Mr. Trump standing there with Ryan and Mitch McConnell at the Capitol talking together? Really?
No, but they are politicians, and this is found money. Yeah. They didn't expect him to win. That's why they were not endorsing him and not campaigning for him. But he won, and he's better than a Democratic president because they get to do all the things that they've always wanted to do because he's going to sign off on that. He has an organization that's independent of the RNC, so he needs them, and they also need him.
Yeah. But the party definitely has been divided. Is it as simple as just coming together and say, let's work together, or it looks like there will be a lot of healing? There will be a lot of conversation as to what is the shape of this party anymore?
Well, healing works best when you win.
Yeah.
So once you've won, it's a lot easier to bring the party together. There's going to be issues. So, for example, on immigration, if he decides to build that wall that he's talking about, he's going to get some pushback because that's not going to fly. On his trade policies, or with China, for example, if he starts a trade war, he's going to get some pushback from people in his party. Of course, Democrats are going to try and derail some of this stuff in the Senate with a filibuster, but it's not going to work. But by and large, Republicans are going to rally around him. They bet against him, and he won. And so now he gets to dictate the agenda. Exactly. And that's the thing. If you bet and you lose, how that happens.
In some way, I think it can always remind them, remember, you should have listened to me, so listen to me now.
And he has proven that he doesn't need them to win.
Yeah.
But they need him to sign everything that they push forward.
Now, for looking to foreign policy, especially as regards Africa specifically, some are feeling chills running through their system. But let's face it, this is a Republican. It's going to be a Republican administration. We had a Republican administration under Bush, and we had a Democratic administration under Barack Obama. Did foreign policy, was it better for Africa then during the Republicans, or was it even any better during Obama's administration?
Well, the Bush administration actually was a pleasant surprise in some of the things that they did. Like if you take PEPFAR, for example, which was very good. Bush was not a hard man. He went to Africa. Africans didn't warm up to him at first, but they did. If you go to Ghana, there's a major road named after him, the Walker Bush Highway. And Obama, the relationship has not been where people thought it was going to be, but it's been better because Africans feel good about having Obama in the White House. And for those of us here in the diaspora, we have access, unprecedented access to the administration. That's going to change when Trump is in there. Trump doesn't have connections to the African community.
But if we use we fall back to how President Bush, related with Africa, we don't have to. People may not have to necessarily worry too much.
No, but the opportunity for new initiatives will probably not be there. I don't think that he's going to cut anything. So PEPFAR, for example, will be funded. AGOA has been renewed. Those things will be there. The Mandela Fellowship that brings young Africans here. He's not going to scrap that.
Yeah.
But I can't see him hosting a dinner for their fellows when they arrive, the way Obama did. And even if he did that, who will go?
Exactly.
Who wants to go and sit there and send their young people to learn from this guy?
Yeah. Well, Professor Norma, you see, another issue that dominated the campaigns is how best to confront the threat of terrorism, now at home and abroad. Now, before I get your thoughts, let's turn now to France. On Sunday, the nation marks the one-year anniversary of one of its deadliest terrorist attacks, one of several jihadist strikes that have traumatized France in recent months. The coordinated attacks across Paris last November 13 killed 130 people and injured scores of others. Now, Lisa Bryant reports from the French capital.
It's showtime again at the Bataclan. The concert hall is reopening with a Sting concert and an all-star lineup that includes Senegalese singer Youssou N'Dour. And a major facelift that helps turn the page on last year's terrorist attacks here that killed 90 people. Salim Jagoul remembers happier times.
I am really upset about the attacks because I know the Bataclan staff and I like the atmosphere.
In many ways, Paris is back to normal. The anti-terror graffiti and rallies are in the past. Other spots where the terrorists struck are reopened and refurbished, but the emotional scars remain from last year and July's truck attack that killed children as well as adults in Nice.
The terrorism is very terrible because it touches the confidence of the people. So before you are in the street and can see the sun and everything and go in the cafe, but now you have some people who be careful about everything.
Parisian Stéphane Dantier has a restaurant across the street from two of the places the jihadists targeted.
After the attacks, the neighborhood mobilized to do many things. It was great, but the Nice attack reopened the wounds.
Sunday, Dantier will join Parisians in lighting paper lanterns in memory of the victims. It will be a long time, he says, before this neighborhood heals and moves on. Lisa Bryant for VOA News, Paris.
Well, let's turn to our discussion with Professor Norma. First, in your assessment, to what extent was the issue of the fight against, the threat of terrorism, ISIS and those groups, feature in the, election of the President of the United States?
It was superficially discussed. Hillary Clinton had some proposals, deploying no-fly zones in Syria, but it was never debated. What does that mean? That means that you have to send troops in there, and what happens if you shoot down a Russian jet? Are you ready to go to war? All those things, but it wasn't discussed because of the superficiality of the Trump proposals, the things that he talked about. I'm going to carpet bomb them. I'm going to reinstitute torture. All of those things are not things that are possible. So it made the discussion very bizarre. And this strongman talk is very dangerous because it feeds into the terrorist recruitment process.
But so what it means essentially is that President Trump will probably have to sit down and think through a plan, which we probably may have to discover.
Yes.
That whatever was said during the campaigns may not really...
It's not tenable. Yeah. He claims that he knows more about ISIS than the generals. Yeah. I don't think he does. He will be finding out very soon when they start doing the briefing how complicated this problem is, and that you cannot just go in and carpet bomb people. You have to address the structural sources of terrorism, which France itself is struggling to do with. The same kind of rhetoric that he displayed, the Muslim ban, all those things, they actually help the terrorists who are recruited, who are saying that, look, we told you these people don't want us here. That's the problem that France has. France has marginalized this Muslim minority, and those, even though they are sympathetic to the French Republic, they have nowhere to go. So, the mullahs in their midst are saying, we told you so. So Donald Trump has to be very careful with what he says and what he does.
Well, the elections are over, the election rhetoric is over. So many people are saying, we don't know what's going to happen. There's so much of unknowns. But from your experience, do we ever really know the extent of what a president or an administration would do just, before
we don't know, but Barack Obama said something, I believe this. the presidency does not change you, it magnifies you. So Donald Trump is now on the brightest stage ever. He's a showman. Do you think he's going to change that much?
Perhaps
he believes
the reality. Perhaps the reality of sitting in that office and looking with that from that position may change.
If he had lost,
perception.
he would have had some kind of self-reflection.
Yeah.
But once he won, when everybody was betting against him, he didn't have an organization. He did this on his own. He thinks that the people are with him. And that's what's important to this man. He thinks that he has a mandate from the people that voted for him. When everybody was saying, don't vote for him, don't vote for him, he's crazy, he's crazy, he's crazy. He has won. So it's going to be very hard for anybody to advise him and say, your plan is wrong, when he has proven everybody that he can do it on his own.
We'll wait and see how things play out. Professor Nuama, we do appreciate your insight. Our thanks to Ku Nuama. Is an adjunct professor at American University and a senior fellow at the Center for Conflict Resolution, Salisbury, Maryland, for joining us today on Africa 54. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Well, coming up, the continent's hottest music videos. Stay with us.
Together we can fulfill the role of this house. Allow yourself to be guided by the conscience.
The yes is 126, the nose is 214.
That we are moving to help Africa and all the...
De stabilité, d'égalité et de modèle.
Well, it's time now for Music Makers, and today we present some of the hottest music videos from Africa. Here's Sanusi Diallo.
Thanks for joining us for another edition of VOA's African Hit. I'm Diallo Sanusi Galish Jr., your host from Washington, D.C. Today we are going to talk about UNESCO, Conakry World Books Capital, and of course, present to you the top 5 music video from Africa. Here we go, introducing our number 5 music video today. It's an inspirational song from Wonder. Here's Wonder in Thank You.
If you're feeling hopeless, the sun is gonna shine. Don't you give up now. Heaven's got a plan for
We're going to go ahead and introduce our number 4 music video of the day. Here's the dancing star from Uganda, Triple Ghetto Kids, in Mood.
Everybody's in the mood. Dance and jump and touch the roof. Oh, love what you say. Enjoy the mood. Oh, okay. Do the mood. Enjoy the move. Abanda bakona groove. Spending mood. My papa, please, spending mood. The way you move, I want to see the way you move. A dancing mood. Do some your boo. Fetulinda bisa. Ole pate, Uganda le pate. Ole pate. Tanzania le pate. Ole pate. Havana le pate. Abange le pate. Everybody le pate.
introduce our number 3 music video of the day. He is the MTV Africa Mama 2016 Best Francophone Artist, Serge Beno in Karijatu. Introducing our number 2 music video of the day, here's Davido in Bagbe OG.
Don't try press me button. Don't try tell me nothing. Do the galala and shocky. Shabadaba. Money gaga. Lie. She's come up on the arena, we leave a chase, no bag. I pull out of the game, we have to do it up again.
Now it's time to introduce our numero 1 music video of the day. Coming straight from a lakeside of Kisumu, Kenya, here's the winner of the African Entertainment Award, Best Female Artist 2016, Akoti in Yuko Moroni. Let's go. Once again, we want to thank you for tuning in to VOA's African Hit. I'm Diallo Sanusi Galis Jr., your host from Washington, D.C. And once again, thank you. See you next week.
Well, and that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. And for more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to Voice of America's News Words, where we talk about words you hear in the news.
This word is about something that might happen. Listen to hear it 2 times.
Potential.
A potential refugee crisis is brewing amid shortages of fuel and medicine elsewhere in the country. President Obama says the situation could spread more broadly in the Middle East, but continues to limit the scope of potential U.S. involvement.
Potential is a word that means something could happen. There is the possibility that all the pieces are there for it to happen.
The reporter said it is possible that a refugee crisis could develop in Iraq. Now, the next time you hear potential, you will know what this news word means.